Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin, and tonight we are talking about monsters that the boys didn't fight but should have. But before we dive into that, because there are a lot of monsters in this world, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Lola.
My name's Lola Laracy. I am a writer, and I've been watching Supernatural since 2005.
Okay, Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Wicker, and I'm a latecomer to the Supernatural family, but I went completely down the rabbit hole. And I'm a writer and editor myself, and it's just lovely to have fun talking about Supernatural.
And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. All my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home, because there are a lot of monsters. So looking up monsters and finding cool ones is kind of part of what I do. And Supernatural uses so many and some real, rare ones, but there are always more that they could have gotten to. So maybe when they come back, like they keep promising, maybe we'll get to see some new monsters then too. But which ones out there would you like to have seen them hunt that they didn't? And we'll just keep going around until we run out of time. So Lola, give us a couple.
All right. So I've got a scene in my head already. They're in New Jersey. All you see the dashboard from their perspective, and maybe it's raining or something, and you see a big massive white bird poop plop on baby on the windshield. And of course Dean is just furious, and he's just, you see red in his eyes, he's just angry, and so they got to figure out what's going on. So they investigate and they figure out that it is the Jersey Devil, and it's some kind of like bird creature. And I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it's actually pretty interesting. So some people think that the whole mythology came actually from Benjamin Franklin, of all people. He had a rival in his almanac business, so high stakes almanac, named David Leeds. And to disparage him, Franklin called him a monster. And then somehow from that, the legend came up that the Leeds were monsters, and that went to the legend that the Leeds' 13th child was cursed by the mother and turned into the Jersey Devil. So in this case, it is a real thing, but they got to figure out where it came from. Was it Benjamin Franklin? Was it this big almanac intrigue? And maybe they even visit, where some of the almanacs are, and talk to some of the people who were related to them. And they got to figure out actually where it came from. Was it the 13th daughter? Is there something they can do to free her and stop her from pooping on windshields everywhere? So that's the episode.
Well, we saw how Dean react to that pigeon.
Yeah.
So, the Jersey
And a
Devil,
7-foot creature, think about the plop on that. And then when it dries and he's got to scrape it off, and he doesn't want to scrape the windshield.
He's not going to be happy about that. That's
it's personal. It's personal. This time it's personal.
Anne, how about you?
Well, I'm intrigued by the Jersey Devil one too. But the first thing I thought of was, and we may argue about how to pronounce it, but the chupacabra, because they talked about it a number of times, but they never actually fought one or tracked one or anything.
Supposedly Mary did.
Yeah. So I would have liked, or catch. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen him take on a chupacabra. For real.
Yes.
And there's so many things that they could bake into that, because what if they have to go to Puerto Rico? What if it's in Puerto Rico and he has to get on an airplane?
Right,
Yeah,
or a cruise ship. I would have
Or a
loved to
cruise ship.
haunted cruise ship, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Or it's Mexico. Do they have passports? I want to see their passports if they go to Mexico. So many things.
Yeah.
And he could go to
Yeah.
Tijuana afterwards and have a lost weekend there.
Yeah, Chupacabra was on my list as well, just because it has come up, and there is that whole gag reel of David Hayden Jones saying Chupacabra.
And they're laughing at him.
Yeah.
That's worth it just to watch in and of itself. You know, I wanted to see in the episode where they go through the rift into the bad place, and they're in that huge, looks like a dinosaur footprint, and it's so big they don't realize they're walking around in the footprint of something. I want to see Sam and Dean in like a Jurassic Park kind of thing with velociraptors or you know, dinosaurs. I know aren't technically monsters, but they would be if they were hungry and coming after you. So I would have just loved to have seen, you know, a Jurassic Park episode for the guys. Maybe they were ghost dinosaurs or zombie dinosaurs. I just would have loved to have seen Sam and Dean take on dinosaurs. I mean, why not?
Well, and that makes me think about, you know, King Kong.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You
good
know,
point.
they could have done King Kong too. And
My
of course,
suspicion
they
is
could have been on a boat instead of a plane. So
Yeah, yeah.
my suspicion is the reason we saw a lot of humanoid monsters and black smoke and strange eyes is because special effects are very
It's
expensive.
easier. Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of these things would have been expensive, but hey, we can dream. If they got a Led Zeppelin song in the finale for the Winchesters, then there's money on the table somewhere. And so, you know, this, never say never. Lola, back to you. Other than the Jersey Devil pooping on the Impala, what do you got?
Well, speaking of cruise ships, now I was thinking about how they would get out here. Okay, so there is supposedly a sea monster in in Vermont, in Lake Champlain, called Champ. And so I'm thinking, it's a pretty big lake. This is something like 109 miles or something. So they're not going to be on the shore, just, you know, with a fishing pole trying to catch it. They're going to have to get out there. Maybe it's even like a small island that they have to go to in the middle of the lake. So they got to figure out a way to get out there. So are they going to commandeer a cruise ship? Is that what they're going to do? And if so, you know, now a lot would depend on what kind of cruise it is. If it's a spring break cruise with, like, you know, young women, Dean's going to have the time of his life. And there could even be a moment where, like, he thinks it's going to be all these hot women and he's all excited. And then he realizes it's a shuffleboard tournament of 2020 or whatever, 2018. And it's all, you know, 80-year-old women. And he's like, but then you get a little hint of Soldier Boy and he's like, maybe.
And now Sam's showing up for all the history lectures in, you know.
Yeah.
And he's helping the some of the people do their genealogy. So he's helping them research their genealogy. He's having the time of his life, you know, and he's trying different teas and stuff. So they're out on the cruise ship. And then, of course, they have to figure out where the Lake Champlain monster is going to be. And then they see it. And of course, all the people on the cruise ship are in danger. So they have to kind of protect them. And what if they fall in the lake? Do we know if they can swim? I don't remember if they've ever talked about swimming.
They could swim because they jumped in after the boy in Dead in the Water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both did pretty good dives.
Okay. So, but still, they got to fall in at least once. And, you know, there's got to be some scenes where they're flailing around a little bit. And, oh, you can even have like it could be like Jaws, where you just see like the fin and even like a little boom, 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 boom.
Gonna need a bigger boat, huh?
Exactly. Oh, they could even do a little take on that. We're going to need a bigger cruise ship.
Yeah.
So,
And how about you?
Well, I was thinking about ghost ships, but I guess they did have the ghost ship in that one episode. But I was thinking more along the lines of Mary Celeste, where there's a ship, like a cruise ship, modern day cruise ship or something, that everybody's gone. And what happened to them? You know? And Sam and Dean have to try to figure that out. And but I've always been intrigued by chimeras.
Mhm.
And it's and we've seen that on different shows, and different shows have interpreted it differently. There was a very, very creepy X-Files where the chimera was part of the guy's body and would leave his body and murder people. And it was totally creepy.
That episode freaked the heck out of me. I'm remembering it now.
And then there was an intriguing CSI episode where the fact that the guy had the twin that never developed, but the twin was part of him. He had two different blood types.
That's a real thing.
And so they had to figure out which part of his body to take the blood from in order to get him on this murder that I think it was a murder that he committed. And I just thought that was really intriguing. But in mythological terms, in Greek mythology, a chimera is made up of different animal parts, and it's different. It can be different animals depending on whichever story you read. So that would have been hard for Sam and Dean. A chimera could have been, a lion and a wolf and a something else and an eagle or whatever, and sort of a Frankenstein kind of monster that they could have fought. But also that brought up another one sort of related, in that they never really, I don't think they ever really encountered a Jekyll and Hyde situation where there was a doctor experimenting with the, whatever it was. I haven't read that story in a long time, but that turned him into a monster, but then he would come back and he'd go back and forth being a monster and not. And I don't think they ever fought anybody or ever tracked and hunted anybody like that.
No.
But that would have been another one of those Benders type situations where it really was a person who was doing this,
Yeah, the closest they ever got to that was somebody who was possessed and didn't know what they were doing when they were possessed, but it wasn't a pharmacological thing. It was
Right.
Yeah, and Lola beat me to the idea of lake monsters, sea monsters, not just ghosts pulling people under, but something like the Loch Ness monster, because there are legends about big, like dinosaur fish in the Great Lakes, in any lake of any size. There are legends about that. And it would have been fun to see, Sam and Dean with their harpoons out there doing Moby Dick,
And it's dragging them. They've got the harpoon, but they're being dragged by it.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been fun. And honestly, you could have just given enough glimpses of something that you wouldn't need a big budget if you just keep seeing, oh, it's the lump of the back.
You just need the hump.
Yeah, or the neck, yeah. But all the classic monsters that they fought fought vampires and ghosts and werewolves, and they had that Frankenstein-y doctor that sewed people together. They never fought a mummy. And the mummy is always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
They're kind of slow and they shuffle, but I always just thought they were really cool even before the Brendan Fraser movie. And so I would have loved, stuck in a big museum overnight, Sam would be going absolutely nuts. Reading all the stuff.
I know how it starts. May I interject just for a moment? I already know how it starts.
Okay.
Bathroom at a museum, bright lights. You see 2 feet in the stall. They're trying to reach for toilet paper. There's no toilet paper. And then they see the mummy shuffles in, and you just see this white strap hanging. And the guy's like, "Oh, dude, thanks. Can you give me some?" And he holds out his hand, and then he's gone.
See, Lola didn't just come up with monsters. She workshopped this. So, fan fiction going here. But yeah, I'd throw out the mummy out there, and I love that.
Oh yeah, the mummy would have been great for them to have to track down a mummy.
Mm-hmm. So Lola, back to you.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna go with the Kraken. It's a huge octopus. So I'm sure y'all are familiar with hentai.
Mhm.
I tried to watch it once, and the poor Tinkerbell, I couldn't get over it. I had to turn it off. What they did to Tinkerbell was not cool.
We got a little bit of that in
Mhm.
the episode The Thing with that
Okay,
Craftian
okay.
Dean's chained down on the slab in the other Men of Letters bunker.
Well, I think,
But it wasn't a true Kraken. It was more of a
Okay.
Lovecraftian thing.
yeah, this is gonna be the huge thing. It's gonna be in Norway. So for some reason, they're in Norway. He has to get on the plane to go to Norway. And of course, there are a lot of hentai jokes. And Dean's like, man, I don't watch that much, and then of course, when they're on the way to Norway, Sam reminds Dean that the women are beautiful in Norway, and that's the only thing that keeps him calm on the plane. You can see like it cuts to visions of blonde women in fur, playing and laughing and being, oh Dean, and he's like, I can do this, I can do this.
Okay.
Yeah, a huge octopus. What's not to love?
Yeah, absolutely. And
I long time ago, I got really intrigued with gargoyles, and
Oh.
they are, mostly you think of, when you say gargoyle, you think of the Notre Dame and architectural things. But they're really, I looked it up today, and they started out as being a dragon-like creature. And of course, they did fight the dragon. They did have the dragon in the show, but the gargoyles are a slightly different mythology. And a long time ago, I saw a movie made in, I can't remember the year, but you'll appreciate this, Gail. It was a made-for-TV movie, and the stars were Cornell Wilde and Grayson Hall from Dark Shadows.
Wow.
Okay.
And Cornell Wilde was an anthropologist, and he and his daughter, not Grayson Hall, I forget what part she actually played, but they find a colony of gargoyles out west somewhere, or maybe in Mexico, I don't know, but it was some desert area, and they were actually, and the gargoyles in this film were more devil-like with horns and that kind of thing. But I remember it being a really great plot that they put together about that they only they had their own nest or whatever, and they only came out every 7 years or every 107 years or something, and then they would terrorize the area, and then they would go back into hibernation. But I thought that would have been an interesting thing for Sam and Dean to have to track down this colony of gargoyles and figure out how to deal with them and keep them from, destroying the village.
And hopefully they don't poop on baby.
no, hopefully that would be rocks. That would be bad.
Ooh,
Yeah.
He would really
There
hate
was a cartoon series, I think in the 90s on the Disney Channel about gargoyles, only they came to life and became superheroes. And I always liked that. I've always, anytime I've been someplace where there are gargoyles, I want to go find them all, look at them. I would love to see the boys deal with the Minotaur. They never dealt with a Minotaur or Centaur or any of those type of creatures. And I could see there being this labyrinth underneath, this big old mansion out in the country. And the real legend of the Minotaur was cursed to be the shape of the Minotaur. And I don't remember whether he was the king's illegitimate son, or there was some reason he was cursed into the form of the Minotaur, and then driven to madness and then locked up in the maze. And so I would love to see the boys in this underground maze beneath this big mansion dealing with the Minotaur. There was a really good fan fiction that I read where Sam got cursed into being the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and basically he went missing for a long time, and Dean had to not only find the Beast but then figure out it was Sam before he just killed it on general principles. And it was a good story, but So maybe Sam gets turned into the Minotaur or something, but I think it would be a lot of fun to see something like that. But again, CGI, makeup, expense, but that's
In
what
the
I love
theater of
about.
our mind.
Yeah, that's what I love about books and written stories is you've got an unlimited budget in your head.
Yeah.
What else? Back to you, Lola.
Okay, skunk ape.
That's
Yeah, it's like our version of Sasquatch, which I know Dean said Sasquatch doesn't exist, but whatever. He's been surprised before.
And yet he keeps talking about it.
And yet he keeps talking. Yeah, I know. So I think they have to come to Florida. They'll probably hate it because it's hot. And we have all kinds of snakes
Sam
and
doesn't
stuff.
like Florida after Broward County and Mystery Spot.
Oh, I don't even remember that. What happened?
Well, Mystery Spot, when Dean died over and over again, that was in
Yeah.
Florida. That was in
Okay.
Broward County.
I didn't
Sam's
remember that.
not going to be happy about going back to Florida, but I digress. I'm sorry.
And it's going to be in the Everglades, so it's a big swamp, and they're going to be on like some kind of like shallow boat, and they've got to like have one of those long sticks, and they're going to be going like this looking for a freaking Sasquatch that kind of looks like a skunk too. And of course there are going to be snakes and alligators, and so you never know if they get scared multiple times, and like screaming like a little child scared by like all the alligators and stuff. So forget the skunk ape. They're done before they even get to the skunk ape because of all the snakes and everything. So it's just like, they're just in this boat in the Everglades, and just swatting at mosquitoes and stuff, and just totally miserable. And they're actually wanting vampires. They're like, remember when we used to hunt vampires and demons? Don't we wish we want that back?
Well,
Meanwhile,
mosquitoes in the swamp are pretty close to vampires.
Yeah.
exactly. And they're like, and meanwhile you hear like a weird sound in the distance, and they think, oh, that must be the skunk ape, and it's dark by now, and so they've got to go find a skunk ape in the midst of all these crocodiles and snakes.
I went on a bayou tour in Louisiana, and I did not need to know that alligators can use their tail to propel themselves 3 feet into the air if there's
I
food.
did not know that.
Flying alligators, I did not need to see.
I did not know that was a thing.
They can, sort of. So
I'm glad you told me that before I witnessed it, because I would probably die on the spot if I witnessed that.
Back to you, Ann.
Well, I was also I was trying to think of some of the more traditional monsters or whatever that they never really fought. And I came up with trolls and ogres.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw them have to clean out a troll from under a bridge. Or an ogre who's, we had what's her name that was Hansel and Gretel, but was he an ogre? I forget. He might have been an ogre.
He might have been. I think he was just sort of not a very pretty person.
Yeah. But anyway, I just thought that those two particular sort of traditional bad guys were two that they never fought or never even talked about, really.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about Sasquatch, they always said that it didn't exist, but then they talked about it all the time.
I know. They say it doesn't exist.
So I kind of agree that, they should have at least investigated that.
They said Santa Claus didn't exist, and we saw what happened there.
Yeah, exactly.
There are infinite things in this world they don't understand. I just paraphrased that, but
Yeah.
lots of things in their philosophies.
And speaking of Santa Claus, Krampus and Perkta are pretty darn scary kind of pre-Santa Clauses. Sam talks a little bit about the Anti-Claus and shows some pictures from some old books, but they're really chasing the pagan gods in that episode, and they don't really run into Krampus and Perkta. Perkta is Krampus's like uglier cousin. They're horned creatures they still do celebrations with people in these huge costumes in northern Germany and some of the mountain areas. And they were much less on these, creature brings you presents at the solstice, as opposed to, if you were bad, I'm going to stick you in my bag, take you home and eat you. And so I think that, they could have gone to an Oktoberfest somewhere and run into a real Krampus or Perkta, which would have been a lot of fun, because goat-headed gods, what's not to love? They're pretty creepy looking.
They are.
They are. And especially, if people have got the torches going and the firelight and the big bonfire, it's just, very primal.
Yeah.
How about you, Lola?
Okay, I'm running down to the end of what I have. So how about some mermaids? And it could be like a siren thing. I just thought of this right now. It could be like the siren. And I don't know if that would be here in the United States though. I don't know how they would come across that in the United States, but.
Well, there are a lot of stories where people, when they come to the US from other places, kind of bring their gods and monsters with them, their belief system. And somebody certainly could have, smuggled a mermaid in a container on a ship sometime.
You got it.
Mermaids are scary. They've got sharp teeth and they ate the people.
Yeah.
They weren't just, they weren't just
like pretty, Daryl Hannah
like
and Splash.
The girls at Wiki Wachi.
Yeah, not like that. They were pretty vicious. So okay, so it's like you have the underground exotic animal trade, where usually it's like lions and tigers and stuff. This is mermaids, and they have to go to like an abandoned sea park type thing in Florida. Let's make it in Florida, why don't we? And so it's all dark and it seems abandoned. They go in and there's like a big swimming pool tank thing, and they think, well, is this where they're supposed to bait the trade? And that's when you see like all these people milling around, and you see the tail coming out of the pool, and it's like just going like this and that, and then it comes up and you see the teeth, and then it cuts to supernatural with water splashing.
I saw something online and it was an abandoned aquarium, and I forget why the circumstances were. I don't know whether it was in like Ukraine after the war started, or it was somewhere where people just kind of cleared out real fast and weren't able to take everything with them. And so, it's abandoned. Not all of the sea creatures got taken away. It's really, really creepy. And now if you add like, zombie orcas and mer people, yeah, that could be real creepy.
Yeah.
And how about you?
Well, taking a different tack, and you know more about this than I do, Gail, but I would have liked to have seen them go to New Orleans and really dig into, a voodoo thing with Marie Laveau, is that, or one of her descendants or whatever, to do some, and have to figure out the voodoo part and what's been happening with, maybe somebody went on a murder spree or something, but with Loas and all kinds of the voodoo, the mythology around voodoo and Haitian voodoo with, and that goes back to zombies, but it's also other stuff, and so other magics and things that make people do things that they wouldn't normally do, and that sort of thing, being roofied by the voodoo instead of.
Well, and comment about having done a case in New Orleans not long before he comes to get Sam at Stanford.
Okay.
That's canon. Something about when he and his dad were hunting separately, he got sent to New Orleans on a case. I know there are some excellent fan fictions about what happens in New Orleans, and they take some of those routes. But yeah, that would have been great, because the Petro Loa are the dark side of the Loa entities. And, you know, you have the good side and the bad side, and Petroloa is the darker side. And there's some pretty creepy stories there. Yeah, that would be great. Plus New Orleans. I mean,
well, and
it's
they could
good.
also have the ghosts, because American Horror Story did a lot with Marie Laveau, and I'll just never forget that. You know, Kathy Bates being Marie Laveau, and it was just Ricky. So they could do ghosts too if they wanted to.
Oh,
for
yeah.
people.
New Orleans is so haunted. Can't throw a stone without hitting a ghost. Yeah.
Except
yeah.
it goes right through.
To have seen something like the Wild Hunt. Maybe something, they wouldn't have to go to England. Maybe they could be up in New England. And the Wild Hunt is there are many different variations of it, but there, Herne the Hunter is one of the immortal characters that often gets named with it. But and sometimes people say that it's the Fae, but it's basically like a immortal ghostly fox hunting party, except they're hunting human souls. And they show up like on the solstice, and people stay inside to avoid being taken by the Wild Hunt. And you have the baying of the hounds and these ghostly horses. And the next morning somebody's missing, and oh well, the Wild Hunt got them. And I could just see, you know, the Wild Hunt grabbing Sam and finding out they made a big mistake because Dean's coming
not
for
going lightly. That could be like their version of the Purge. They can even make a joke about, wow, the Purge is real.
I think there is actually a short story. I think there is also a fan fiction, something like that with there's fan fiction for everything, but with the Wild Hunt and Sam and Dean getting caught up in it. But that's such a cool legend. And so, you know, you know, you mentioned a lot of visuals, Lola, and that's great, but there's a lot of sound that goes with this too, with the horse hooves and the wind and the dogs, you know.
And hearing the crackling fire if there's fire.
Yeah. Or the sound of the riding crops. Yeah. They could have pulled that one off with cheaper visual effects and some of it. Lola, back to you.
Well, you know what? You just put an idea in my head. Did they ever do anything with the Headless Horseman?
No.
How cool would that have been? And it could have been ghosts, so they could be in you know, old New England, and you know, they see the shadow of the horse and the Headless Horseman. But not only that, there are ghosts everywhere, just because, you know, the revolution and all that stuff. And you have the hooves and the cracking whip and all that, and oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the whole Headless Horseman thing would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Yeah. Anne, how about you?
Well, we've gone over a lot of my stuff. There's also, of course, this would have to be, I mean, another sort of traditional one is a Sphinx. You know, the body of a woman, I mean, the upper part of a woman and the body of a lion and the wings of an eagle. I think that's right. And that would have taken probably way too much special effects, but I've always been intrigued with the Sphinx, and I just think that would have been an interesting, you know, they discover a Sphinx over here in the desert somewhere, you know, and they can't figure out how it got to be built over here too, you know? So, and that maybe that could go along with the mummy idea.
Yeah, that seems like it goes well. You know, they fought the monster where you had to be drunk to see it, the Japanese monster.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But there are so many really cool Asian monsters that you don't see in a lot of, you know, normal American stuff. We're starting to see a lot more of it now with so many of the dramas coming to like Netflix, but there's and I'm probably going to totally mess this up, the Pontianak, which is like the Lady on the Ring, the TV show, the movie with the black hair in front of her, who comes out of the TV with the tape, the videotape, and usually drowned, so they're kind of dripping. And that's traditionally, that's a woman who died when she was pregnant, and somehow that kind of messes up her afterlife. But if you are ever confronted by an Asian ghost, throw dried red beans, not salt. That is apparently the thing to get rid of Asian ghosts, is dried red beans. And I read that somewhere and I thought, oh, come on. And then I'm watching one of the Korean dramas, and a ghost shows up and somebody throws dried red beans and they vanish. And I'm going, well, I hope Sam knows about the dried red beans.
It's a learning curve. Mhm.
That's right. That's right.
That's really interesting.
One of the others I had was a scorpion man. Now, not the Scorpion King like Dwayne Johnson, but again, we're talking about mashup creatures here, you know, torso of a man, back end of a scorpion with the stinger. That could be very interesting, or maybe somebody who could shift into that, because we only really saw people who could shift into pretty normal things like dogs or wolves. We didn't really see shifters who could do anything super interesting. So I think there could be a lot of room for people to be some of these more unusual creatures. Maybe it's some sort of shifter curse, but that could have been interesting, just running around trying to get away from that scorpion tail.
True.
Or, you know, some of them, like in the movie The Mummy, where that guy turned into all the scarab beetles. Maybe instead of having a scorpion tail, maybe it just like poofed into a million scorpions all over the place, and now you have to get rid of all these scorpions running around the ground.
And
You
then
know.
they could disperse and then come back together and reshape somewhere else.
With better effect bugs.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And the other one I thought, and maybe, you know, maybe at the time the show came on, they thought it was a little too close to do this to like Harry Potter, but a basilisk or some sort of big mega snake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that could have been really interesting. And just having that lends itself to a whole bunch of different stories. They never took on anything like a Medusa, did they?
Not that I know of.
What was I was trying to think about that today. What was the guy who was cooking body parts?
This guy, he had the snake eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he a type of chimera? I don't remember, and I couldn't remember what episode that was to look it up.
I couldn't either. I just know Jack was in it, and so that meant it had to be in season 14, I think.
Yeah, 13 or 14 at least.
Yeah. But I don't think they ever did a Medusa that I can think of.
No, not that anybody got like petrified or something.
No. And that would have been really interesting.
To unpetrify people.
Right. Yeah. How do you do that?
Right. Or do you? They just stay stoned forever.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's like
and see, now I can picture Sam and Dean finding this new section in the bunker that's all full of these statues that are amazingly realistic.
Idea, yeah. And then Florida bans them because they're nude. Sorry. You can't show those. No. But yeah.
Another traditional one that I don't think they ever encountered was a leprechaun.
They did.
They did?
There was a leprechaun in the same one where Dean microwaves Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. That yeah. You're right. There was a
The-
leprechaun in that.
As he was helping the guy,
Yeah.
you know, traditionally like making shoes or something. And yeah, it's the
Right,
same.
right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
But you know, there was the crazy guy with the UFO sightings, but they never really dealt with an actual alien.
I wanted that to be real so badly. I was so excited, and Robert Picardo disappointed me. How dare he?
Even Scooby-Doo had a movie about running into Scooby-Doo and the Alien Encounter, where they run into real aliens. And Sam and Dean, you know, angels, demons, all this stuff. Geez, you could have thrown in some little green men.
I mean, is it so hard? I mean, I can see Chuck making aliens. He's like, yeah, let's do another world where it's, you know, aliens and, you know.
Or the guys somehow have to sneak into Area 51. I mean,
Oh, yeah. That would have been great. And, you know, maybe they thought that the X-Files did aliens to death or something.
They could have. I mean,
They took from the X-Files so much.
Oh, yeah, they
And-
did.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
Kim Manners directed the
I
X-Files.
know.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. They had a
Oh.
lot in common.
The late and much lamented.
I know. Bye, Kim. Rest in
Well, I'm
peace.
going to throw another one out there, and that is a Sukoyan, which is a Caribbean monster. And it's basically a blood-sucking hag that when confronted turns into a fireball.
Ooh.
Well, okay, then.
So it's kind of a vampire. It's got some different properties from our traditional Western European vampires because it's based in the Caribbean
Mhm.
mythology, but so it's not exactly like a Strika. There are a lot of mythological, you know, old women who suck the life out of you creatures, but the Sukoyan with the fireball is a little special, so that could have been exciting because
Oh,
Dean
yeah.
Dean likes things that blow up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that reminds me of oh gosh, I just blanked on what it is. The ghost that sits on your chest and sucks your soul.
Boo hag.
Yeah, there's another name that I'm trying to think of. Can't believe I've just blanked on it.
Yeah, the southern version of that is a boo hag.
Okay, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I could see Sam out there, you know, Lawrence, Kansas isn't, or Lebanon, Kansas isn't the South, but I could see Sam painting the ceiling of the entranceway to the bunker haint blue, which
Yeah.
is that shade of blue that is supposed to, you know, keep ghosts away. And they also
Yeah.
say it keeps wasps from building nests. So go figure.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dual
Wasps,
purpose.
ghosts.
Hey.
Yeah. Anything
take it.
buzzing around you.
That's right. Well, does anybody have anything that we haven't covered? Because we've covered a lot of waterfront here.
Mhm.
And if not, then it's time to let everybody know where we can find you online. Lola?
You can find me at my website, which I finally got fixed, lolalaracy.com. And just about anywhere online. I quit Twitter because of the alien that's in charge of it now. But otherwise, I'm all around the internet.
Okay. And
I'm mostly on Facebook and as Ann Wicker, and you can find me there and on Continual and in the Team Free Will North Carolina group, Supernatural group, and I'm also on Twitter. I'm sort of hanging on Twitter and I'm on Instagram quite a bit, and I'm Ann Wicker in both of those, so you can find me easily.
okay. My websites are gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on all the social media, so if you spell those names right, you'll find me in some variation of those words. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business, which is a big fandom blog, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you both so much. This was a lot of fun. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon. So we'll see you online.